first started looking at Driveclub, it was probably around the time that Sony was first kicking around ideas for the PlayStation 4. And we realised that Driveclub was a great fit for PS4. This concept is about 10 years old. You know, it predates PS4, it predates social networking and social gaming. But we knew at the time that this concept of you know, car fans or racing fans coming together and sharing this experience and, you know, sharing in car culture together was a big thing. We just didn't know quite how we were going to pull it off back then. The technology wasn't quite there for us. But with PS4, we've got a platform that, within its very DNA, it's about connected gaming and sharing experiences. So Driveclub was the perfect vehicle for that. The clubs were originally designed a bit like guilds or clans. There were sort of 30, 40 people. But we found that that wasn't quite working. It wasn't quite what we wanted from the game. As often is the case, if you're in a large guild or a large clan, you feel like you're just a cog in the machine. You don't feel like you're contributing directly to that. And oftentimes you don't really know who the other people are in that guild. So we decided to reduce the number of participants in a club, and we've actually locked that down at 6 players now. The idea behind this is that it's you and 5 of your close friends. These are you know, people that you know really well, either in real life or the buddies that you play a lot with online. The reason for that is you feel connected to these players and you feel like you've got something to offer to the club. Everybody has a role, everybody has a way to contribute towards the club and to make the club grow and unlock even more rewards for everybody. And that was absolutely critical to us, because we didn't want any one person to feel like they were left out or to feel even like they were intimidated. So we made sure that the game rewards multiple play styles. Whether you're interested in always setting the best lap times, if you're a competitive racer, if you just like drifting, if that's the thing that you do, or if you're just a fan of a particular brand or manufacturer and you just want to, say, race Ferraris all the time, or you just want to race in Chile. You know, each of those different reward streams is totally viable. It's totally up to you as the player to decide what you want to do and how you want to play. And it will require, each club will require every player within that club to explore all these different reward streams to help the club grow. You know, with Driveclub, what we're trying to do is effectively recreate reality as closely as we can. We want this to be a really immersive experience. And if you're trying to shoot for immersion, total immersion, if any one piece of the puzzle is missing, if there's any one detail that's slightly off, you are immediately pulled out of the game experience, like you are not immersed in it. So we had to ensure that every single aspect of the location was completely accurate. So we visited all of the countries in the game. We captured photographic reference, we captured audio reference, like they're the kind of standard things that you do. But we also captured light data. We captured atmospheric data while we were there as well. You know, the game features a full atmospheric simulation system. So that's not just a lighting model. We have real-time dynamic time of day. We also have this atmospheric system, which allows us to really explore not just light and dynamic light, but also the quality of that light. You go from sea level all the way up to the mountains. Now you can set both of those locations in the game at the same time of day. They're at the same time of year, but you will have a completely different experience through both of those locations because the altitude is different and therefore the atmospherics are completely different. And that was absolutely critical for us. We wanted each of these locations to feel totally believable, totally immersive. Even though they're not real tracks, you know, we've used some artistic license to craft a racing experience out of them. And the main reason for that is that oftentimes real roads aren't the most fun to race on. They're great to drive along or to cruise along, but they're not as much fun to race on. And that's a combination of the roads are quite narrow. Actually, when you travel home from college or work or whatever today, have a look at how wide the roads actually are. You know, normally they're kind of 2.5 car widths wide at the most part for most regular roads. If you've got 12 competitors on a track, you know, it's not very wide. So in some cases what we've done is, rather than widen the roads itself, because that would break the sense of immersion and the sense of belief, we've perhaps extended the runoff areas to the sides of the road so that there is a little bit of extra room to overtake and to pass. Also, what we found was that most roads in real life tend to be, you know, one long straight with like a 90-degree bend and then another long straight and maybe a roundabout and things like that. Like, that's not a huge amount of fun to race on either. So we've probably taken, you know, a section from a location that we've seen that we like the look of it, we like the feel of that location, and maybe another location that we like as well. And then instead of joining them together directly, we've maybe created a bit of bespoke track in between, some nice sweeping bends, a few hairpins, something that helps the track flow like a real racetrack would. And then what you end up with is hopefully the best of both worlds, where you've got a location that feels totally authentic and totally believable, but with enough artistry to it that it feels like a racetrack and allows you to have a competitive race on it. It's pretty difficult to strike a balance between kind of a fun, accessible handling model and something with the detail of a simulation. But our approach has always been to start with a simulation base. I think if you simulate what happens in the real world first, you've got plenty of room then to explore beyond that. If you don't start with that simulation, I don't think you've got a fixed base to work from. You're not really sure where you stand then. If you're trying to recreate a real world vehicle, which is what we're doing with Driveclub, you ensure that the performance characteristics of that vehicle accurately match what they would be in real life. In fact, in the game we have a virtual rolling road and a suite of automated tests, so that Dave Kirk, who's our physics and handling programmer, he can set up a vehicle, run it on the virtual rolling road, and it'll run a 20-30 second cycle, spit out some figures and some data at the end of it, and he can compare that data to the real world performance data and make sure that any changes that have been made, either by himself or anybody else, it hasn't affected the base handling of the car. Once we've got that right and we're happy that the performance of the car is accurate, we then start adding some subtle layers of accessibility to it. In a video game, you don't have the same feedback that you get in a real car. You don't have peripheral vision, so your sense of speed is slightly off. When your tyres are on the limit of adhesion, when you're just about to slip out, like you feel that through your backside, you know, you feel that through the vibrations around you. That's really hard to simulate with a controller when you're sat kind of leaning back in your couch. So the simple solution to that is to just increase the brake strength. Now, we don't increase it by a huge amount, but it's just enough so that as a player, while you're playing, the cues that you get from the game, when they kind of feed into your brain and eventually kind of into the controller, you're then braking at what is the right time. These are all just subtle additions layered on top of the simulation to give you a much more authentic experience.